The story begins on a normal summer morning inside one of the cheap apartments where our protagonist, Min Jun, lives. Judging by the looks of it, the guy had a fun night playing video games. As his computer is still on, he's sleeping deeply until the annoying sound of the alarm clock disrupts his peaceful rest. Like most of us, the alarm is extremely irritating, and he forces himself to grab his phone and turn it off. Since he has school to attend, he gets out of bed still half asleep. When he walks into the kitchen, he finds a note from his mother on the fridge, saying that he'll have to manage on his own today, because she's already gone to work. After putting on his school uniform, he leaves the dimly lit apartment. As he walks through the rundown neighborhood where he lives, he can't help but glance at the luxurious high-rise in front of him. It seems like he envies the teenagers who live there, while he rots in the slums, trapped in a miserable life. Still, complaining won't solve his problems, so he heads towards school. The school in question is Sang in high school. Apparently, life at school isn't much easier for Min Jun either. Of course, there are the classic bullies who pick on him for no reason, enjoying themselves while doing so. Min Jun is left suffering on the floor. Leading this group is Park Song Bin, 18 years old, from class 3 of the second year. As Song Bin keeps mocking Min Jun, a voice cuts through the air, making everyone freeze. It's a girl, followed by her loyal group of followers. She's clearly unimpressed with Song Bin's childish behavior. He's always picking on weaker students, even though she also finds Min Jun pathetic. Still, she believes Song Bin's actions are damaging the school's reputation. Her name is Yena, also 18, from class 3. Song Bin quickly switches his attitude, pretending they're all best friends, treating Min Jun like the class pet, someone you can mess with without consequences. But Yana's point still stands. Song Bin is creating unnecessary chaos in the halls and ruining the school's decorum. If he wants to mess around, he should do it outside school grounds. Song Bin then points out that Yana probably hates Min Jun more than anyone, and now she's preaching morality. Yana defends herself by saying that while she may find Min Jun ugly, she's never physically assaulted him. Unlike Song Bin, we learn that Yana and Min Jun have been classmates since middle school, just like Song Bin has known Min Jun for a while. Trying to smooth things over, Song Bin invites Yana to come with him to meet a new friend, but she flat out refuses. Apparently, the last time she agreed to hang out with him, he took her to Min Jun's half-finished apartment, which was smelly, messy, and screamed poverty, so there's no chance she's repeating that experience. The reason this princess has such high standards is that she lives in the luxurious apartment complex Min Jun was eyeing earlier, the same building visible from his home. Her parents are a hospital director and a successful professional, meaning she was born with a silver spoon in her mouth. She's always posting new pictures on social media, and pretty much everyone at school is a fan of hers. On top of that, she excels both in looks and academics. There are even rumors that she'll go to the United States next year to continue her studies. She seems like the perfect person with no real obstacles in life, but she has one major problem she can't get over. She despises poor, weak guys, and guess who fits that description? Yep, it's Min Jun. Back in 8th grade when Min Jun and Yana were in the same class, he finally gathered the courage to talk to her, but she replied with a tone full of disdain and irritation. To her, he was just a stinky little kid who followed her around like a mosquito, something she absolutely hated. Although their houses were along the same path, he couldn't stand walking next to him. She told him to take a different route so she wouldn't have to tolerate his smell. That was the moment it became clear to Min Jun this girl hated him with every fiber of her being. Speaking of smells, he had noticed that she always smelled nice. To him, that must be the scent of wealth. Under normal circumstances, after being humiliated and rejected, most people would start to hate the person who treated them that way, but Min Jun's feelings for her were unwavering. He was loyal to an absurd degree. He always sat next to her, even while being constantly ridiculed and belittled by her cruel remarks. Year after year, same school, same class, same one-sided love. Despite all the constant mockery, he never gave up. At times, he began to question himself, am I crazy to love a girl who mocks me every chance she gets? This is Min Jun's life, physically beaten by Sabin and emotionally tortured by Yana. Welcome to the life of a certified and pathetic loser. Later, Min Jun is hanging out with his two friends, who are just talking about anime, being the otakus they are. The chubby one in particular seems obsessed with anime, while the skinny one beside him, Suho, hasn't really been keeping up with the anime scene lately. Meanwhile, Min Jun sits there silently like a background NPC, just observing. Suho, 18 years old, and the chubby one is Bone Jr., also 18. Suho and Bone Jr. are in different classes from Min Jun, but they're the only friends he has who actually share a personality similar to his. The only difference is, they're not the ones being bullied. Min Jun feels seriously envious of them. The only explanation he can come up with is that they're simply lucky. While he's the one who receives all the unwanted attention the world has to offer, his train of thought is interrupted when his friends ask if he's interested in going to a Luminina concert. If he's down, they'll grab extra tickets. The idol model on the phone looks hot, but Min Jun doesn't care about that kind of thing anymore. Honestly, he's lost his last bit of interest in these idols. Of course, his friends think he's missing out on a great opportunity. Now that they're thinking about it, they begin to notice that Min Jun has been looking like a walking corpse lately. As they head out, they can't help but throw out a few colorful remarks about how depressed Min Jun seems, without any apparent reason. Back in class, Min-jun just wants the day to end so he can escape his miserable life. Then he hears Sabin and his crew talking about some random guy who stared them down when they tried to mess with him. The guy looked intimidating, but the boys are sure that Sabin could have easily taken him down. Apparently this guy came from North Korea to South Korea. They're mocking him for abandoning his parents and running away to save himself. As they talk, the guy they're ridiculing, Kangel, shows up and hears everything. Naturally, he's not going to take that lying down. Som Binzigo gets bruised when Akul stares at him like he's nothing. Som grabs him by the collar, but the Sigma doesn't even react to the aggressive move. He simply suggests that Som Bin shouldn't badmouth others unless he's ready for the consequences. Som Bin refuses to let go. But before things escalate into complete chaos, his lackeys step in to calm him down. Eventually, Som Bin lets go of Kuel, but not before threatening his life. While all of this is happening, Jun is just sitting quietly in the background, wondering to himself when he'll finally be free from this hellish school. When school ends, Min-jun walks home, his mind spinning with all kinds of thoughts. He's seriously considering dropping out completely. It seems like his only way out of this miserable life. He's made up his mind. There's no turning back now. That's when Seom Bin and his goons cross his path. Curiously, they seem happy to see him. Seom wants cigarettes and tells our protagonist to ask a woman nearby to buy them at the convenience store. After all, they're underage and can't buy them themselves. Of course, Min-jun knows this is just another way for Seom Bin to bully him, and he's had enough. Instead of putting up with it, he simply ignores them and keeps walking home. Seom gets furious that Min-jun is ignoring him. As expected, he and his thugs beat Min-jun up and dump him in an abandoned construction site. Seom holds a brick which he uses repeatedly to bash Min-jun's head. They hope this beating will teach him to obey, but Min-jun has reached his limit. With a broken, defeated voice, he tells Seom to just kill him. He's lost a will to live. Dying feels like the only escape. For some reason, that response really enrages Seom. He gets even angrier and kicks the boy one last time before leaving. Before walking away, the bastard makes one final threat if Min-jun ever tries to kill himself and mentions them in his suicide note. He promises to find his mother and kill her on the spot. With that, they leave Min-jun broken and battered at the construction site. Dawn begins to rise on the horizon as Min-jun makes his way home after everything. The only thought in his mind is that he wishes the world would just end by tomorrow, but he knows that won't happen. So his best option is to go to the top of that luxury apartment complex he's always stared at and jump. It'll all be over in minutes. With that plan in mind, he starts heading toward the building, ready to end it all. That's when he runs into Yana, the girl who despises him the most. She gets irritated just by his presence and demands to know why he's wandering around there if it's not his home. Seeing how badly he's injured, she's certain he's not there to deliver anything. On the contrary, he looks like he's planning some kind of robbery. Of course, she then remembers how pathetic he really is. Well, that's exactly why he came, to end it all, once and for all. On the other hand, the girl starts to question his bruised face, wondering if someone beat him up. She's genuinely annoyed that he never fights back and always takes the blows like the damn dog he is. She goes on a long rant for a while, and eventually, the guy just turns and walks away from the building. That spoiled brat keeps complaining about how he's ignoring her, but eventually gives up and decides to continue this conversation the next day. Later, Min-jun returns to his cramped, smelly apartment to relax. He turns on his PC and puts on his headphones to dive into some video games. Thinking about everything that happened, he realizes she wasn't wrong. He really does deserve everything she said. That's why he's never going back to school again. Starting tomorrow, he plans to get a job and help his mother with household expenses. Night falls and Min-jun is still wrecking enemies in his FPS game, mowing down waves of zombies. Suddenly, his friends in the live chat say they're logging off and leaving, which doesn't make any sense to Min-jun. After all, it's only 10 p.m. There's still a good 2 hours until midnight. That's when his friends remind him about the breaking news, the outbreak. The world outside is in chaos right now, and as if it were fate, Min-jun hears a commotion outside. He gets up and cautiously walks to the front door. Just as someone starts banging insistently, he checks the peephole before opening it. It appears to be one of his upstairs neighbors, asking him to open the door in a trembling voice. Upon hearing this, Min-jun assumes the guy is drunk again, but he doesn't realize that man is no longer his drunken neighbor. He makes the mistake of opening the door. The first thing he notices is the blood covering the man's entire body, along with a massive torn wound on his stomach. Even so, Min-jun thinks the man must have been seriously injured and considers calling emergency services. But then the zombified man lets out an inhuman scream before lunging at Min-jun. They both fall to the ground, the zombie landing on top of him. Min-jun finally kicks him away after realizing the man is completely out of his mind. He crawls backward and locks the door. His heart is pounding, his breathing is heavy, his legs tremble uncontrollably. There's no way that psycho is just his normal neighbor. He grabs his phone to call the police, but nothing connects. That's when he notices the emergency alerts on the screen. Unknown attacks are happening in Seoul and in unspecified regions. Everyone is being advised to stay indoors for their safety. Then he hears chaos erupting just above his basement apartment. He opens the window just enough to peek outside, and what he sees is pure hell. People are literally tearing each other apart. He even sees his neighbor again, still roaming the streets and causing destruction. That's when he starts worrying about his mother and tries calling her, but there's no signal. Night falls and Min-jun turns off all the lights in the apartment, curling up in a corner under a blanket. He tries connecting any network, but nothing works. No signal, no updates. He turns on the TV in search of answers about this chaotic situation. The news anchor reports a series of brutal murders committed by unidentified civilians across the country. The government is calling it an act of indiscriminate terrorism and says they are investigating the cause and those responsible, but there are still no concrete details. The anchor urges everyone to stay home, lock doors and windows, and avoid any contact with the outside world. The next update reveals that Busan has also fallen. Similar violent incidents are being reported not only in Seoul, Busan, and in Xi'an, but also in smaller cities. Police and military forces are being mobilized, but the situation already seems out of control. Min-jun feels utterly hopeless, overwhelmed by terrifying news after terrifying news. He's so shocked it feels like a nightmare he can't wake up from. From what he's heard, it seems like the world's been taken over by zombies, but that only happens in games and movies. It's too ridiculous to be real, and yet everything he's seen so far confirms it. He wants answers, and staying locked in this dim apartment isn't going to help. He decides to go out and secure the building's front door as firmly as possible. Before opening it, he peeks through the peephole to make sure no zombies are lurking. With the path clear, he carefully opens the door and steps outside. As he climbs the stairs to the ground floor, an eerie silence surrounds him. When he reaches the main entrance of the building, he peeks outside and spots a zombie wandering the street. He immediately shuts the door and locks all the bolts. His next goal is to check if there are any survivors on the upper floors, but with the deadly silence, it seems like no one's there. For now, he decides it's not worth the risk. He'll wait until morning. He's convinced that the police or military will eventually show up to rescue them. He turns the TV back on, hoping for updates, but before anything important appears, the transmission cuts off. With no other choice, he lies down and tries to sleep, but with all this madness happening, he can't fall asleep. More than anything, there's a disturbing feeling inside him. Just yesterday, he wanted to end his own life because the world was too cruel. He even wished the whole world would burn, and now it seems like his wishes come true. But that doesn't mean life got any easier. In fact, now he's just fighting to survive. It doesn't take much reflection to realize that nothing's really changed. It was already hell before, and it's still hell now. So all these zombies in the end of the world don't really scare him, because honestly, he was already as miserable as a person could be. Morning comes. The streets are filled with abandoned cars, zombies wandering everywhere. Min-jun finally opens the main door and risks peeking outside. The air feels wrong. There's a strong metallic smell of blood hanging over everything, so intense that he slams the door shut and locks it again. Going out without preparation would be suicide. He heads to the kitchen, and luckily he has enough supplies. 4 packs of ramen, 6 cups of instant noodles, some pre-cooked rice and raw rice. Enough food for about 2 weeks. He has 3 bottles of water. Thankful the tap still works. Even the gas is still running. For now, if he manages his supplies well, he can last about a month. That should be enough time for someone to find him. Maybe a rescue team will eventually help him escape. For now, his biggest concern is his mother. Since he can't connect to the network, there's no way to know what happened to her. All he can do is hope that she's alive and safe. Then he remembers there are 5 families living in this building. In one of them, a college student used to live in the rooftop room. He recalls the guy being a real flirt, always bringing his girlfriend over every Tuesday for their little fun. Since yesterday was Tuesday, that means the couple might still be trapped up there. Min-jun gathers his courage and finally starts climbing to the upper floors. On the way, he checks each apartment, but there doesn't seem to be anyone around. The only place left is the room on the rooftop. As he climbs the stairs, he hopes to find the couple alive and well. Strangely, the rooftop door is wide open. When he gets there, he notices the college student's room is also open. Naturally, he steps inside, but what he sees is something he wishes he hadn't. On the other side of the room, the girl is already dead, while the college student has turned into one of those flesh-hungry zombies. Fortunately, Min-jun's eyes don't focus on the body, as it's in his blind spot. The only thing he sees in front of him is an absurd amount of blood. Enough to make him hesitate. He quickly abandons the idea of exploring the apartment. As he tries to retreat silently, he accidentally knocks over a fire pot, drawing the zombie's attention. Upon hearing the angry growls, Min-jun takes off like a cheetah, but his clumsy steps make him stumble. The zombie rushes out of the room and leaps at him immediately. Cleverly, he uses the zombie's momentum against it. He simply ducks, lets the zombie fly over him, and shows the bastard, sending it falling off the rooftop. The scene leaves him breathless for a moment. He falls to his knees, nearly drained of strength. Without thinking twice, he runs back downstairs, locks the door behind him, and barricades himself again inside the apartment. He still hasn't processed that life or death encounter with the monster. He can't yet accept that the university student from the rooftop, in whom he had placed his hopes, is now a mindless undead. And the most devastating part is that he literally pushed him off the top floor, causing his death. Even so, he tries to convince himself it wasn't his fault. What he did was just self-defense. The student attacked him first. Another night falls, and just like the one before, Min-jun is forced to spend it in that dark basement apartment. He sits in silence, the weight of guilt over the student's death gnawing at him from the inside. He gets up and goes out to the street, hoping to see the student again. In front of him stands a zombie. When it turns to face him, Min-jun notices the student's broken neck hanging over his right shoulder. Seeing this, he feels both relief and fear. Relief that his classmate is alive, but feared because the boy in front of him is no longer human, he mentally apologizes and closes the door behind him. That encounter teaches him that those people are nothing more than zombies now. The next day arrives, marking the third day since the apocalypse began. He prepares a meal using the rice cooker. In fact, he's trying to use the foods that require cooking first, since he plans to rely on them while the gas lasts. Afterward, he can turn to packaged goods. There's a persistent thought in his mind. He can't afford to waste time waiting for help. If the food runs out before then, he'll be doomed. On one hand, he's relieved the entire building is now zombie-free. It was only the rooftop student, and he's already gone. To draw the attention of rescue teams or other survivors, he considers lighting a fire on the rooftop. He's also thinking about leaving the building soon. He had already given up on life a few days ago, so even if he dies out there, it doesn't matter anymore. Besides, he's already survived 2 life or death encounters, which only gave him more confidence to fight these monsters. If things get intense, those zombie creatures don't scare him anymore. Suddenly, his phone rings. Miraculously, it's his mom. He doesn't waste a second before answering. His worried mother asks how he is. He quickly reassures her, saying he's home alone for now, and asks where she is. She reveals that she found the army during the evacuation the day before yesterday, and is now in a shelter in Segun. She tells him not to worry and suggests he stay home, promising to ask the rescue team to come get him. With just that brief conversation, the call drops again. Even so, Minjun is happy to hear his mother's voice, a clear sign that she's alive. Out of nowhere, he starts receiving messages. They're from his 2 otaku friends. If they're sending texts, it means they're still alive in their homes. It seems those guys are so comfortable where they are that they're still cracking jokes in the middle of all this chaos. His 2 friends live close to each other, so Minjun has certainly helped each other in this situation. Besides them and his mother, there's one more person whose whereabouts he wants to confirm. Ina, the woman who always humiliated him. Of all the people he knows, she lives the closest, but he's not sure if she would ever return to his place, considering how much she hated it there. He remembers the path when Xiang Bin and his gang were having fun in his apartment. One of them had invited Ina, but didn't tell her it was Minjun's place, someone she despised. Everyone was laughing while Minjun panicked at the news of her coming. When she finally arrived and saw the cramped, dirty place, she simply stared, hesitating at the smell of cigarettes, the sticky, moldy floor. She didn't even step inside and turned back immediately. At the time, Minjun was devastated by the look of disgust on her face. What hurt him most wasn't Park Bin and his crew taking over his home, but Ina's reaction upon seeing it. Now sitting on the toilet, he wonders if she's still alive. But even if she had turned into a zombie, Minjun wouldn't be too shaken. After all, his father is the director of a hospital. He still hopes his dad might discover which virus caused the outbreak, becoming one of the candidates to find a cure. But in the end, shouldn't he be more worried about his own survival than hers? Being the spoiled rich girl she is, she probably already escaped safely. But then a familiar voice calls out to him. He begins to feel unsettled as he recognizes it. It's coming from outside the apartment, through the window. She tries to call him, attempting to stay quiet. Even so, her voice ends up attracting zombies which start running in her direction. Desperate, she screams for him to open the door. Finally, Minjun opens it, pulls her inside, and locks it again. The woman is so terrified she's literally sweating. No matter how deeply she tries to breathe, nothing calms her down. Suddenly, Yena wakes up startled, asking if Minjun is okay and why he is there. With strength, the girl grabs the boy's shirt, still somewhat dazed. Right after, she buries her face in his chest, looking very shaken while Minjun remains confused. Her hand keeps tightly gripping the boy's clothes as if seeking safety. Minjun shows surprise, not fully understanding the girl's sudden reaction. Completely confused, he wonders what the hell happened for her to act like that. In a wider view of the room, we see the 2 on the floor with the girl still clinging to him. Worried, Minjun asks again if Yena is feeling okay. Gradually, she lets go of his shirt, seeming to regain her composure. Raising her face, Yena thanks young Minjun for the help he gave her. Honestly, she admits that if it weren't for him, she might have met a tragic end. The boy gets a bit awkward but relieved, saying that now she is safe, so it's alright. With a serious look, Yena observes the surroundings. Turning to Minjun, she asks if now it's just the 2 of them in the house. He explains that his mother left for work 3 days ago and hasn't returned, but he managed to contact her and she is safe with the military. Yena replies that she understands and is glad to know that he didn't sleep either. The boy takes the opportunity to ask about Han Yena's parents and how they are doing. The girl hesitates a bit before mentioning something about her mother, but she deflects, saying that both are fine and asks for water since she hasn't drunk anything in days. We see a wall clock showing nearly 3 in the morning at that moment. Minjun grabs some water bottles he had saved for her. Thirsty, the girl starts drinking the water desperately without stopping for a second. The boy is shocked, wondering how much water she can drink at once. He remembers they need to ration because if the water gets cut off, it'll be a big problem. But Minjun reflects that she probably risked her own life to get here. A bit awkwardly, he asks if she came straight from her house to his. Still confused, the young man asks why she chose his apartment in particular. Her answer is shocking. Yena reveals she had been hiding outside all this time. She starts to explain that it all began 3 days earlier, the day they bumped into each other. That day something happened. That's why she went back home to change and went out again. The girl begins to tell her story, recalling the screams heard on the street. Suddenly, everything started happening out of nowhere. People were running in despair, running without thinking. Yen ended up hiding on the staircase of a nearby mall. She waited for a rescue that never came. Minjin asks, shocked, if she was alone there. Fortunately, Yena found a single unlocked door near the staircase where she was hiding. That door led to a small meeting room. With no other option, she hid there. Luckily, there was a water bottle inside. Yena survived on just that. But on the third day, thirst and hunger reached their limit. Yena decided to leave and run home. Upon leaving, the girl saw the street full of fallen people and others walking strangely. With an anguished face, the girl wonders why that path had to be like that. With little choice, she supposes she'll have to go through that narrow and dirty alley. That's how she ended up stealthily reaching Minjin's neighborhood, recognizing the area. To return to her apartment, Yena would have to pass through that chaotic side of the city. With no better option at that moment, the girl had to take that route anyway. Yena realizes she's getting close to Minjin's house. She somewhat remembers the way. Yena wonders if Minjin is still at home since he went there 3 days ago. The girl says she dodged the strange people until she got near his house. Relieved, Yena sits while Minjin praises her courage for going out. Sighing, the girl admits it was a relief to find him at home. With messy hair and sweating a lot, she asks if there's still water in the house. It's noticeable that her clothes are quite damp from the sweat. The boy just looks at the girl with a focused expression. Minjin comments that she sweated a lot and asks if she wants to change clothes. The girl seems surprised by the boy's question, blushing a little. Annoyed, Yena calls him crazy and kicks him, saying he deserved to get hit. Too tired to argue, she asks if she can take a shower if the water is working. A bit awkwardly, the boy just agrees and tells her to go ahead. She thanks him, and Minjin sits pensively, wondering what all of this was. Soon after, we see the bathroom door being closed by the girl. Alone in the living room, the boy remains seated looking toward the bathroom. Minjin reflects on his plans. He wanted to leave, but now he can't leave Yena alone. Food is another problem. He only has supplies for one person for a month. Now time is cut in half. The boy feels the whole situation is completely hopeless for the two of them. Still processing, he finds it unbelievable that Han Yena is now showering in his house. A memory comes to mind. At school, Minjin always walked alone through the empty hallways. Back then, whenever he tried to approach, the girl would simply ignore him blatantly. The girl wouldn't even look in his direction and treated him like he was some kind of insect. Back to the present, Yena comes out of the bathroom wearing lighter clothes, surprising the boy. The girl asks to borrow some clothes from Minjin. She needs to wash hers urgently now. Nervously, the boy starts looking for something for her to wear while Yena just asks for anything. Minjin hands her a gray t-shirt. He seems a bit embarrassed by the situation. Yena complains about the musty smell of the shirt and asks if there's another one. Minjin is left awkward. The girl smells the t-shirt again. She seems to dislike the unpleasant odor very much. Despite the strong smell, Yena decides to wear the t-shirt anyway until her clothes dry. She suggests using a spray. Minjin defends himself, but Yena blames the place and her sensitivity to odors. Yena calls out to Jung Minjin, who responds a bit surprised. The table shows remains of their meal. The girl then asks what they will do now. She believes all that's left is to stay there and wait for rescue. Minjin confesses that before she arrived, he was thinking about moving to another place the next day. Yena is shocked by the idea. She asks if he's gone crazy and why risk leaving when there's food there. She emphasizes that she barely survived to get there. That's why she refuses to go out again. Minjin tries to calm her down, explaining it was just a thought before she showed up, not a current plan. The boy seems to accept the situation now that she's present. He concludes they'll have to hold on and wait for help. Worried, Yena raises an important issue about what they'll do if the food eventually runs out. Sitting face to face in the room, the girl insists on the question about their future without supplies. Minjin considers that the only way to last longer would be to look for supplies in other houses or upstairs. He admits he's not sure about the safety outside, noting that the screams from other buildings have recently decreased. Yena's expression turns to shock. Minjin concludes that if the food runs out completely, they'll have to go out. Getting up quickly, Yena vehemently denies the possibility of leaving. Minjin reminds her she couldn't stay where she was either, reinforcing that going out will be necessary if food ends. She prefers to postpone that worry, saying they should think about it only when the time comes. Agitated, Yena argues that he hasn't even been outside to know what it's really like. Yena confirms his thought and says those people are like zombies from what she's seen. Sitting down, Minjin replies that they still need to learn more, but from what he saw through the window, if you get bitten, you turn into one of them. With a distant look, the boy confesses that honestly, he doesn't even care if he gets infected. Surprised, Yena says that it doesn't matter since he has nothing to lose anyway. Minjin then deduces that the key is simply to avoid contact and remembers she managed to get there. The boy adds that she herself said she was only seen when she was almost at his house. He explains that not all the infected attack the same. Some just walk and others seem collapse depending on their injuries. Moreover, Minjin observes that their running speed is actually slower than that of a normal person running. Therefore, the boy concludes that the two of them can completely avoid the infected while Yena seems to reflect on this. Trying to lighten the situation, he asks if Yena ever played tag when she was a child, leaving the girl confused. Smiling a little, Minjin suggests thinking of it as a game of tag. Maybe dodging them could even feel a little exciting. Yena doesn't like the comparison to tag, thinking the idea is crazy. She says she's being serious about the fear she feels. Either way, the girl says she's gonna sleep now. She asks if Minjin can get her some blankets. The young girl mentions she hasn't had a decent night's sleep in days. That's why she's really starting to feel sleepy now. Surprising Minjin, Yena asks if he's gone crazy for trying to sleep next to her. Pointing to a corner, the girl tells him to sleep far away from her right there. The boy gets a bit awkward. He reminds her that the house isn't sleeping in front of the bathroom is a bit much. With a sigh, Yena finally seems to understand his point of view and gives in a little. Changing his mind, Minjin now says he'll sleep in the bad spot and she can have the comfortable one, leaving Yena surprised. The boy deflects by saying he'll just sleep on the stairs, but Yena insists he should just sleep there comfortably. A small argument begins over who gets the more comfortable place. Minjin even jokes about sleeping in the kitchen. However, he backs off quickly when he realizes Yena took the kitchen idea seriously. In the end, Minjin ends up lying improvised on the floor near the house door. Resigned, the boy thinks that's how he ends up losing and sleeping alone. At least he's still inside the house. Even so, he mentally thanks Yena for not being alone anymore, even though he thinks she talks a lot. The door remains blocked with several boxes and lots of adhesive tape to ensure safety. A single lit candle illuminates a bit of the dark and tense living room. On the more comfortable bed, Yena remains awake, looking at the ceiling with a worried expression. Breaking the silence, the girl calls out to Jung Minjin, who is also awake in his corner. Minjin hears Yena calling him still awake. He looks surprised. Looking toward the bedroom door, Yena invites him to come in and sleep there. The girl confesses that being alone is scary for her. Meanwhile, the single candle continues burning slowly in the dark. Even in the comfortable bed, Yena cannot relax. Her mind is full. Her face clearly shows the concern that prevents her from sleeping. Her voice echoes in the silence, calling his name Jung Minjin. The boy remains thoughtful, processing her request. She insists he just come into the room and sleep there. Yena emphasizes that she doesn't want to be alone because she's very afraid. The front door remains heavily blocked by boxes and tape. Accepting the invitation, Minjin is now sitting against the bedroom wall. Yena comments on a scary sound she has heard many times while hiding. With her back turned, she softly murmurs that she misses her mother. Sitting on the floor, Minjin listens to the girl's silent vent. Minjin responds that he can't sleep either. His eyes show a certain concern. Yena confesses that the constant noise from outside keeps her from relaxing and falling asleep properly. She describes the horrible sounds coming from neighboring buildings. This only increases the fear she feels. Despite the fears, the night goes on and Yena finally manages to fall into a deep sleep. The sun rises and Minjin watches the girl sleep. He wonders how long she'll stay out cold. The boy finds it ironic that she's sleeping so well, since she previously said she was too scared to close her eyes. We see the clock on the wall showing 9:05 in the morning. The day has already begun for Minjin. Slowly, Yena wakes up. She sits on the makeshift bed, still a bit drowsy. The girl notices Minjin getting ready near the door. Her expression is full of questions. Confused, she asks where he's going while watching him finish putting on a jacket. Jung Minjin calmly explains that he intends to go back to the rooftop to check the situation. Worried, Yena scolds him. She reminds him that he didn't know if there were still infected people up there. The boy says he'll be fine and will just avoid trouble. He even asks if she wants to come along. Calling him crazy, Yena immediately refuses. Minjin then decides to go alone and tells her to wait. Determined, the boy starts climbing the stairs. He goes alone toward the rooftop of the building. Turning quickly, Minjin becomes alert at Yena's sudden call in the middle of the night. Looking at the door, he notices a crack that's appeared in the reinforced glass with concern. The boy thinks it won't last long. After all, glass is still glass even when reinforced. Worried about safety, Minjin begins climbing the stairs to check the floor above. Along the way, a strange odor catches the young man's attention. Something smells bad up there. Yena follows closely behind and comments that she has a terrible feeling about it. Minjin's expression becomes serious. He also feels something bad might have happened. They reach the rooftop access, a place that used to feel so calm during the day. Peeking through the door, the boy freezes upon seeing a disturbing scene in the small room. Shocked by the image, a drop of cold sweat runs down Minjin's frightened face. Lying on the floor is the rooftop neighbor's girlfriend. She seems to have not made it. Faced with the sad situation, Minjin decides the least he can do is say a quick prayer for her. With sorrow, the young man moves away from the entrance of that now silent room. Yena asks if there's anyone in there. He confirms but explains that the person has already passed away. To spare the girl the sight, Minjin thinks it's best she doesn't go into that room. Somewhat hesitant, the girl begins to say something to the boy. On the rooftop, Yena suggests making smoke signals to call for rescue, but Minjin finds the idea complicated due to the lack of timing with a helicopter. The young girl then shouts looking for survivors. Minjin immediately scolds her for the risk of attracting monsters nearby, and so Yena and Jung Minjin had to keep surviving alone in that place. She then asks what his MBTI is. The boy replies that he's never taken the test, which surprises Yena and prompts her to tease him about not having social media or followers. Curious, she asks what brings him joy in life or if he has any hobbies. Minjin replies that he likes playing video games. Yena laughs when she finds out he plays a zombie game, considering the irony of their current situation in a real apocalypse. Talkative, the girl assumes he's introverted and she's extroverted. She then asks if he prefers to plan or be spontaneous. She then wants to know what Minjin thinks her MBTI is. He thinks about how she never noticed him before, but now only has him to talk to. The boy keeps pondering this whole unexpected situation. He reflects that he ended up alone with the girl he liked, while she chatters and swings her leg near him nonstop. In the past, Minjin thinks that just imagining a conversation like this with Yena would have made him extremely happy. Even with the world destroyed and death close by, he questions whether having these feelings still makes any sense now. Annoyed at being ignored, Yena calls him a crazy loser for spacing out right in front of her. Meanwhile, the front door remains heavily blocked with boxes and duct tape to ensure their safety. A few days pass and Yena is lying on the floor peacefully reading a book. Suddenly, she calls out for Joe Minjin, asking if he's finished washing the laundry. The girl also complains that she's hungry while Minjin hand washes the clothes and grumbles. Annoyed, the boy thinks he might just leave her behind and run away alone someday. He wonders if he's become her servant, because Yena should be washing her own clothes. Without electricity, he has to wash everything manually by candlelight, but the water still works. However, their emergency food supply is becoming dangerously low. Minjin tells Han Yena that he's heading out. She asks him not to take long and be back in 30 minutes. She seriously threatens that if he makes her wait again, he'll be in trouble, and Minjin reluctantly agrees. The boy approaches the reinforced glass door that has some cracks and marks. Carefully, he opens a gap and peeks outside before stepping out to check things. Minjin explains that he patrols the neighborhood once a day using only safe routes. After observing and studying the infected for several days, he's learned a few things. He discovered that they behave similarly to zombies, attacking only the living. With poor vision, they don't notice you from 50 to 100 meters away, but it varies between them. Replying to Minjin, Yena explains that they are very sensitive to sound. That's why it's crucial to stay quiet. Also, during the day, the number of infected is 2 or 3 times lower than at night. She goes on to say that they seem to move into shadows during the day. Maybe they don't like sunlight. Because of that, Yena emphasizes that he must never go out at night under any circumstances. However, Minjin notices something familiar about the infected's traits as he observes them. The boy remembers an online game he used to play a lot before all this happened. Maybe it's just his imagination, but the monster's behavior seems very similar to the game. The boy thinks he might be too immersed in that game. It must be just a strange coincidence. He considers that it can't be. But if the infected are connected to the game, the end of the world is coming. The next day, the front door of the building appears with the glass broken, showing danger outside. Meanwhile, inside, Yena complains about having finished her comics, feeling bored. Looking at the wall clock, she realizes time is passing very slowly in there. The girl grumbles that jerk Jung Minjin is late again getting back. She thinks he's been listening to her less and less. Maybe she needs to train him better or something. Suddenly, the familiar sound of a helicopter echoes once again, but she wonders what the point is. The next day, the city looks calm from a distance, but tension still hangs in the air. Time passes slowly, and the clock already shows almost 4:30 in the afternoon. Alone in the apartment, Yena starts to look visibly worried about Minjin's delay. In her thoughts, she curses the boy and wonders why he hasn't come back home yet. More than an hour and a half has passed, and the girl paces nervously, thinking the worst. Irritated, she complains that Minjin only understands things after getting hit and decides she'll stop him from going out tomorrow. Meanwhile, the sun begins to set, painting the city sky in orange tones. Yena's worry increases even more as night approaches. With a trembling voice, she mentally pleads for Jung Minjin not to be hurt. The candle keeps burning while Yena remembers that more infected appear after dark. Curled up in a corner, she quietly begs for the boy to come back home soon. The fear of being alone consumes her, and she pleads not to be abandoned there. Suddenly, a noise at the door makes Yena raise her head, quickly startled. The door opens and Minjin comes in, panting, calling out for Han Yeda and asking her to look at something. The boy seems surprised or maybe confused by what he found upon returning. Turning to the boy, Yena looks at him with an unhappy expression. She asks if he's gone crazy, wondering if he really wants to get in trouble for being 3 hours late. The girl moves forward to deal with him, but Minjin asks her to wait a second and look at something. Showing a piece of paper, he explains that a helicopter dropped leaflets earlier, and that's why he was late picking them up. With wide eyes and a tear rolling down, Yena seems shocked by the boy's sudden revelation. Not understanding anything, the girl grabs the leaflet and asks what the hell it is. Looking directly at Minjin, the girl is still processing the information she just got from him. Annoyed, Yena repeats that he's very late and asks if he has a death wish. About to scold him physically, Minjin interrupts, asking her to calm down and look at what he brought. The boy explains his delay by saying he had to fetch the leaflets dropped by the helicopter earlier. Holding the paper, Yena's face shows a mix of shock and apprehension as she reads the content. Confused and a bit scared, she asks again what the warning on the paper means. The leaflet says that the gangbook area will go into lockdown, requiring immediate evacuation. Yena realizes that's where they are. She notes the deadline is tomorrow. Minjin points to the back of the paper. telling her to check the safety status. The back shows that their neighborhood Jongmun-dong is koshin, but surrounding areas are labeled very dangerous. Yena turns to him with a serious look. She warns that things could soon get even worse there. Holding the paper, the girl concludes that waiting for rescue is the worst choice they could have made. Worried, Minjin asks if they need to flee Gangbuk immediately. He wonders if that's even possible. The boy recalls hearing that Yuzhangbu is also dangerous. He tries to figure out where exactly the blockade will be. Given the situation and the information about the north, Minjin realizes they need to believe what they read. Concluding his thoughts, the only option left is to try crossing the Han River to the south. Minjin analyzes the fastest roads but realizes that Yongsan and Samdong are also very dangerous areas. Fortunately, the paper shows that Yangshi and Dom, not too far from there, seems to be at a safer level. Surprised by his analysis, Yen admits she thought Minjin was a nobody, but he's smarter than she expected. Crouched and determined, the boy reinforces that either way, they need to leave there immediately. Yena gets nervous. She asks if he's thinking of leaving right now since it's nighttime. She suggests leaving in the morning to avoid the infected and questions whether they can really reach Yangshi and Dom. Desperate, the girl asks to wait a few more days. She believes the rescue will still come. Minjin loses his patience and yells her name. He says that if she wants to stay there and meet a bad end, she can stay. He seriously warns that he'll leave as soon as the sun rises the next day, leaving Yena shocked by his firmness. Yena asks if she should pack her things first and asks Minjin for an extra bag. Outside, the sun has already risen, indicating a new day has begun in the city. The door remains blocked by boxes and tape, ensuring their safety for now. Minjin then turns and asks if they can go. Yena hesitantly agrees. Before they leave, however, the boy seems to have something more to say to her. The boy asks if she's sure about not going to the hospital where her father is. He reminds her that she mentioned her father worked there, and suggests checking if he's okay. Yena's eyes show a quick change, maybe touched by his concern. Forcing a smile, the girl dodges the topic, saying it's all right and hurries to leave. She explains that in their last conversation, her father said he fled with her mother to a shelter. The girl insists again that they leave right away, leaving Minjin a bit confused by her reaction. Outside, the sun shines brightly through the buildings and electrical wires on the street. Carefully, Minjin steps out first into a dirty alley with red marks on the ground. Peeking around a corner, he spots one of those creatures stumbling in the distance. Quickly, the boy gives a thumbs-up signal to Yena, who is right behind him. The scene shifts to a devastated street with an overturned ambulance. Bodies and red stains indicate the chaos outside. Cautiously, Minjin and Yena sneak through the destroyed street. They need to be careful as infected roam nearby. Minjin points out the way forward through the debris-filled street. Yena quickly agrees, following the boy. A wider view reveals the city street blocked by a crashed bus. Fallen trees also hinder the passage. In detail, we see the bus's broken, blood-stained window, a birthday at contrast with the horror scene. Minjin reflects that moving now is easier. He admits being very scared before and warns about dark places. The boy explains that there usually aren't many infected where the sun hits hard, but that doesn't mean they never attack. Yena asks if their destination, Yangxiandong, is still far away. Minjin asks for patience while she complains about not having a bicycle. Minjin agrees that transportation would help, but without communication it's difficult. He also wonders why all the bikes disappeared from there. Sweating and visibly tired, Yena asks for a 5-minute break. She thinks they're walking too fast. The girl insists, saying that her legs hurt a lot from the walk. Minjin just watches her silently for a moment. With irony, Minjin suggests they go have a coffee and simply keeps walking. Yena stays behind, irritated, calling him a bastard. Yena complains that now he's starting to annoy her and threatens him for when they arrive. Minjin just tells her to stay quiet so they don't attract zombies. Again, a more distant shot shows the buildings of the silent city. Only their footsteps echo faintly through the empty streets. Focusing on their feet as they walk, Yena asks once more how much longer it will take. Minjin confirms they still have a long way to walk. Walking through the blocked street, Yena asks if they're almost at their destination. Minjin replies not yet and asks her to hang on a little longer. As they walk, listening to Yena's complaints and avoiding dangers, the boy thinks she asks for water, but Minjin refuses, saying it's precious now. Getting closer, they see a street completely blocked by a truck and old furniture. Do not enter, signs are visible. The two youths stop at the sight of the huge makeshift barrier that blocks the way. Minjin comments on the size of the barricade made there. The boy identifies the area as Yangxiandong and believes the blockade suggests it's a safer place. Yena expresses relief at the news. Excited, she asks if there might be survivors and suggests checking quickly. Minjin reflects that survivors would likely be guarding the area. Minjin notices the absence of infected and the usual full smell. He starts climbing the barricade, asking Yena to stay alert. Already on the other side, Yena calls Minjin, pointing to a spot. She suggests they rest there as she's very tired from walking, but he refuses. Annoyed by his refusal and comment, the girl asks what he meant by exaggerating. Watching Minjin already distant after jumping over the barricade, Yena stands still, looking quite upset by his attitude. Moments later, the two stare at each other from opposite sides of the barricade, near some empty bottles on the ground. With tears in her eyes, Yena seems shaken, recalling that they're back in a situation similar to Chapter 0. Minjin looks at her with a serious expression, perhaps processing what she said or the situation itself. Lowering her head, the girl apologizes to him for her behavior or complaints. Surprised by the sudden apology, Minjin doesn't understand the reason behind it. Yena, with teary eyes, apologizes again. Her voice carries the weight of the fear she feels at that moment. Terrified, the girl points behind her. Screaming, Minjin turns his face with an expression of pure panic. A horde of blood-covered creatures runs toward them. Their guttural screams echo through the deserted street. Without thinking twice, Jung Minjin grabs Han Yena's wrist firmly so they don't get separated, pulling the girl with him. The boy starts running desperately away from the imminent danger approaching. They flee through the chaotic street, dodging obstacles. The infected continue the relentless pursuit right behind. Yena screams in shock as she runs. She can't believe the supposedly safe neighborhood is so infested. Ahead, they spot a man hurriedly trying to block an entrance. He seemed to be a survivor. The man gestures frantically and yells for them to go quickly in that direction. He seems eager to help. Minjin pushes Yena to safety but says he'll help the man close the door and block the passage. The girl is surprised to hear his name. Jung Minjin yells for Han Yena to hide quickly inside. The boy and the other survivor grab a heavy wooden shelf, ready to use it as a barricade. Counting to 3, they push the furniture with force, just as a creature reaches the entrance. The horrifying creature tries to force its way through the gap. Its deformed face stares at the man. Seeing the scene up close, Minjin screams, desperately for the creature to back away from the man immediately. An infected roars fiercely, thrashing violently on the ground. The improvised barricade gives way, and someone screams desperately for everyone to run away. Yena panics, yelling for them to run to the back immediately. Without thinking twice, the two dash down the narrow alley. They climb a pile of furniture as an infected gets dangerously close. At the top of the barricade, Yena says they need to jump and Minjin nervously agrees. The two jump together, landing hard on the other side. After the fall, Yena screams in pain, saying she twisted her ankle, leaving Minjin shocked. Seeing the situation, the boy can't hold back a scream of pure terror. In front of them, two infected run toward the motionless pair. A close-up of Minjin's eye reveals a flash of memory or decision. A memory comes back, reminding him how frustrating it was and that he had to fight back. The memory is of Yena thinking he was pathetic for not having the courage to fight. Recalling how miserable his life was, he draws a knife, thinking it doesn't matter if he dies there. The girl watches him with a surprised expression at his sudden change. In a low voice, Yena calls the name of Jung Minjin, who is lying near the door. Minjin's mind returns to a tense moment, facing an enemy while thinking he wouldn't die running away. Putting the knife back in his coat, the boy considers the possibility of meeting his end in that situation. Back to the present, Yena watches Minjin with a worried expression on her delicate face. Seeing him silent, the girl insists, softly calling the name of Jung Minjin once again. At that moment, his thoughts were firm. He wouldn't die running away like a pathetic coward. Suddenly, the sound of a motorcycle approaching quickly grabs everyone's attention. A shout warns Minjin to duck as the motorcycle dangerously appears from behind. Caught completely off guard, Minjin's face shows only shock and momentary confusion. Quickly, the motorcycle rider hits the enemy with a bat right in the head. The attacker celebrates the hit while another guy nearby yells for them to also get Jung Minjin. The attackers shout heavy insults and threaten to brutally wipe out Minjin. With a sinister laugh, the attacker comments how insane the impact was and how beating others like that is so fun. Turning, the attacker finally notices Han Yena standing nearby with a scared expression. Surprised, the attacker recognizes her, calling Han Yena by name and asking what she's doing there. Confused, Minjin wonders who this unknown guy that suddenly appeared might be. Realizing who's approaching, Minjin thinks to himself that he's completely screwed now. With a bat in hand, Park Sanbin appears. He calls Minjin an idiot and asks why he's with Han Yena, laughing a bit. Minjin regrets encountering someone he wanted to avoid more than the infected themselves in that tense moment. Sanbin notices the knife in Minjin's hand and starts mocking him, asking if he planned to fight monsters with that. The bully then asks if the two just randomly met, finding their pairing quite odd and funny. The girl thanks the group, saying she would have been gone without their help, but Sanbin just mocks, saying he saved her life. Changing the subject, Sanbin invites Yena to go with him to a safe hideout with other survivors. The boy then wonders if that place is really safe, while Sanbin assures it is because there are adults there. One of Xianbin's buddies mentions that Gangbook is closing, suggesting they leave, but Xianbin says it's too late in a suspicious tone. Sanbin offers Yena a ride on the scooter, which she accepts. Minjin asks where she's going, and the bully tells him and his friend to use the kick scooter. Sanbin's look shows he might be plotting something or hiding his true intentions from the group. And Yena seems a bit thoughtful, maybe suspicious of the situation or just processing everything that recently happened. Sanbin's friend asks if it's safe to bring Yena with him. Sanbin fakes surprise but agrees, leaving the girl confused. Sanbin brushes it off, saying it's nothing, and hurries the girl to hop on the scooter without giving any further explanations about the matter. Yena asks about Minjin, wanting to know how they're going to take him along. The other guy seems surprised by the idea. The girl suggests abandoning Minjin. She thinks he'll only slow them down and they still need to save food. Mockingly, the girl wishes Minjin good luck surviving out there alone with a small laugh. The guy with the bat decides they'll take him. He argues that it doesn't hurt to have one more person in the group. Watching everything, Minjin refuses the offer. He says he's not going with them, leaving the other guy confused. Minjin says he'll handle everything on his own. He mentions that he has a specific place to go now. Yena shows concern about his decision and calls his name. Her expression is one of distress. Ignoring the call, Minjin turns his back and starts walking away from the group, going his own way. The bat guy gets annoyed at being ignored. He reminds Minjin of the last time and makes a serious threat. The aggressor says the country is finished so he can do whatever he wants. He threatens to beat Minjin like he did with the monsters. Minjin stares down the bully with a cold and serious expression. He doesn't seem intimidated by the threat. The group gathers, staring at Minjin. The leader calls him a loser and tells him to come over to them now. Yena is shocked by the threat. She asks Park Seongbin if he's gone crazy for wanting to attack him. Minjin remembers that it was Seongbin who attacked him before. He realizes the guy is still the same as ever. Elsewhere or in a memory, a boy suggests to Changmin that taking Yena along would be the perfect chance for something. Still awake, Yena asks if Minjin also saw the strange guy who was following them earlier. The boy isn't sure who she's talking about, looking thoughtful about her question. She describes a man with a hat covering his face and wearing a strange suit. With the description, Minjin remembers having seen someone suspicious like that near his house before. Meanwhile, Park Seongbin chats with his friends, mocking Minjin because of Yena. He mentions having seen photos of her on Instagram and confirms she's just as attractive in person. A friend asks why Seongbin is messing with her and if Minjin wasn't already involved with her. Back on the street, Minjin seems apprehensive upon seeing Seongbin's group approaching them. Seongbin falsely apologizes for overreacting earlier in front of Yena. Minjin, with little choice and looking cornered, agrees to go along with their group. Seongbin looks at Minjin with an air of being in control of the situation now. He says it's better that way, claiming leaving the neighborhood at that moment would be too dangerous. The bully suggests they first go to the hideout to rest, promising to take him wherever he wants afterward. They start walking through an area that seems to lead to a more isolated and suspicious place. Confused, Minjin asks exactly where they're going, already feeling suspicious of the location. Responding to the moment, Minjin says he has a bad feeling. He thinks the guys outside might try something against the two of them. The girl tries to calm him down. She mentions Park Seongbin has been her lackey since elementary school. She promises to protect him if he tries anything. She asks about other survivors in the supposed hideout. Minjin questions if she really believes that. He knows their character. The boy insists. He asks if Yena still sees Park Seongbin as just some childhood acquaintance. The girl's expression turns serious. It seems Minjin's words made her think about her real situation with Seongbin. We see Park Seongbin from behind, walking down the hallway with a bat in hand. Yena then calls out loudly to him. Surprised, the group turns to face them. Yena awkwardly says they're just going back to their place now. The girl explains her plans. She heard her parents are in the Seopyeong shelter. She needs to go today before it's too late. Minjin is completely surprised by the news. He asks if there really is a functioning shelter in Seopyeong. The boy counters the information. As far as he knows, the Seopyeong area was completely destroyed during the incidents. Seongbin cuts in. He asks why Yena would risk going with a nobody like Minjin. He suggests she go with him tomorrow instead. Nervous, the girl tries to change the subject. She says it's urgent and they need to leave right now. Polling Minjin, Yena tries to get out of there quickly with a nervous laugh, but their group doesn't seem convinced. However, a rusty baseball bat suddenly appears, blocking their path and stopping them from passing. Seongbin stares firmly at the girl. He repeats that he already warned her. If she's gonna leave, it'll be with his group and only tomorrow. Minjin asks if something is going on between the two of them and what suddenly got into them. Frightened by the sudden question, Yena only mutters Park Seongbin's name. Clenching her fist, the girl says she'll go with him and asks if Minjin is being serious. With an expression like he already expected this, Minjin thinks he figured this would happen. Agreeing, the boy suggests they just go along with Seongbin to talk. Yena seems apprehensive. She comments that the sun will set soon anyway. Soon after, the three leave the house and walk down an alley with Seongbin in front holding a bat. Reaching the destination, Seongbin stops and looks at a building under construction ahead. Minjin confirms it's the right place and notices barricades on both sides to keep the infected out. Analyzing the makeshift structure, he thinks it looks hastily assembled despite the effort. Next to him, Yena remains nervous looking at the building while a drop of sweat runs down her face. Noticing her nervousness, Minjin gently holds the girl's wrist to calm her. Looking at her, the boy tells Yena not to worry about the situation. He then promises he won't leave her side, no matter what happens there. A little calmer from his words, Yena still seems tense about what's to come. Unexpectedly, Yena lets out a loud scream. The girl confesses she got really scared. Horrified, Yena sees the infected outside. She asks if the place is safe and demands Minjin do something. Getting closer, another guy tells Yena to relax. He assures her the infected won't be able to break in. The girl, however, doesn't calm down. She thinks the barricade looks like it's going to collapse at any moment. Looking from above, the group realizes the gravity of the situation. They're completely surrounded by infected below. One of the guys complains about the improvised shelter, then he tells everyone to climb a nearby ladder. Minjin realizes the idea is to go up to the second floor. He thinks if they pull up the ladder, the infected can't climb. Wasting no time, Minjin starts climbing the makeshift ladder. Soon after Minjin reaches the upper floor, he's followed by Yina and the guy who alerts Hayoung about them. The trio enters a new makeshift room on the upper floor. 2 more people are there, including a big guy sitting. The large seated man notices their arrival. He loudly asks what's going on, mentioning the new guests. The boy explains they're from the same school and class. He asks the man if he's heard of Han Yena, surprising him. Excited, the man introduces himself as Lee Bonju. He says he really wanted to meet Yena and even followed her on social media. The boy mentions he had told Yena about Bonju before. The girl, however, doesn't remember and finds him pretty weird. Bonju assures him the place is totally safe and tells him to relax. Yena hesitantly mentions rumors about Gangbook being sealed off. Minjin replies that he's also still awake and asks if something happened to her. Yena stays silent for a moment before asking if Minjin has ever killed someone before. Surprised by the sudden question, the boy quickly denies it. He's never taken anyone's life. The girl explains that she can't stop thinking about the men she encountered earlier. Minjin listens attentively as Yena recalls the scary incident she experienced. She confesses that one of them grabbed her and how she felt completely powerless in the situation. Seeing how shaken she is, Minjin tries to comfort her, saying it's over now. Yena mentions it was all Park Sangbin's fault. She feels betrayed by him. A hand grabs Yena's arm tightly, pulling her away from there. Turning around, Yena asks to talk for a bit with Park Sangbin, who ignores her. Impatient, Seongbin asks what she wants. Yena asks him to stop and let her leave. The girl says she honestly didn't know it would be like this and hates that kind of environment. She says she can't stay and doesn't believe the story about the blocked bridge. Yena says she's going back to where she was going before and turns to leave. When Yena calls for Minjin to leave with her, Sangbin grabs her arm, stopping her. Suddenly, a boy glares at Yena and aggressively asks if she thinks she can just leave. He continues saying the world doesn't work how she wants while the girl looks at him, scared. Forcefully, the man grabs Yena's arm, preventing her from leaving. Minjin then steps in, trying to pry the man's hand off and asking him to let the girl go. The big guy looks at young Minjin, surprised by the sudden boldness of the boy with glasses. Annoyed, the man asks if Minjin has finally lost it for meddling where he wasn't called.
Well, that's the story of this video. Thank you for watching until the end. Stay tuned here for more videos only on Amazing Manhwa channel.